Okay, this is going to be my instant quick reaction to the playoff committee's first release of their top 25. There's a few major surprises that I didn't expect. A few other things that were kind of toss-ups. We're going to talk about all of it. What are my major takeaways? What is the committee basing these rankings off of? We've got Tennessee coming in at number 1 over Ohio State. I earlier predicted Ohio State would be number 1, Tennessee would be 2, Georgia would be 3, but Tennessee being number 1 tells me that win over Alabama trumped anything Ohio State did. My overall argument for Ohio State being number 1, the overall body of work, the fact that Tennessee went to overtime with Pittsburgh. They had a few less impressive wins than the Buckeyes, but I totally understand Tennessee beating Alabama, trumping anything Ohio State did. They also this past week destroyed Kentucky. And you know, Kentucky is kind of a, semi-good team, possible top 30 team. That was another big win for them. So Tennessee, number 1, some crazy stuff on them. They had not been ranked in any playoff committee top 25 the past 5 years. They've never been ranked inside the top 15, in terms of the playoff committee polling era. So some crazy stuff for Tennessee, really breaking down some barriers there. They're number 1. Ohio State is number 2. Just like I said earlier, guys, Georgia just don't have the strength of schedule. You had the tough game against Missouri. Ohio State does not have one of those games. You had the tough game against Kent State. Ohio State does not have one of those games. Then you can say their biggest win against Oregon, kind of a weird situation, a week 1 type deal where it looked like Oregon just kind of rolled over and died. So they're being, big thing here. We get denied the 1v2 matchup. We know how rare those are, but we do presume Georgia beats Tennessee, they'll automatically be number 1. Tennessee beats Georgia, Tennessee will stay number 1. Ohio State faces Northwestern this week. They're 38-point favorites. We expect them to stay number 2 no matter what happens between Tennessee and Georgia. And then how about Clemson coming in at number 4 above Michigan? This is one that I don't agree with, but I understand why they did it. They're punishing Michigan's horrible non-conference schedule. We knew it would be an issue, and this sets up a potential bigger problem for Michigan if they lose a close game to Ohio State and they're a one-loss team that doesn't make the Big Ten championship game. This hurts their overall chances. That bad non-conference schedule hurts their overall chances. We're not saying go out and schedule Alabama, but you would like to at least face one, out of your 3 non-conference games, face at least one Power 5 team. They're getting punished for it. Personally, with Clemson, the quarterback situation, I think Michigan right now is probably a better team, but Clemson, their resume, even with a few of their big wins, the Wake Forest win looks a little bit worse because Wake Forest lost. The Syracuse win looks a little bit worse. The NC State win with Devin Leary, with him being out, they come in at number 4. So you know what? I'm not going to hate on it. I did project Michigan to be number 4 and Clemson to be 5, but we've got Clemson at 4 and Michigan at 5. And then Alabama in front of TCU, not surprising at all. And I understand people's outrage, but again, I was watching the show, and once again, we're treating TCU with kid gloves. They keep referencing Alabama's close win against A&M. With their backup quarterback, mind you. Bryce Young did not play against A&M. Alabama's close win against Texas in week 2 on the road. Guys, TCU, it's week after week. Kansas State, they were trailing. Kansas State's quarterback gets knocked out. You're allowing 31 points, to teams that are just not good. TCU's defense is not good. They've had to come back several times. They were trailing the entire game against Oklahoma State. That's an Oklahoma State team that just lost 48-0. So let's stop treating TCU with kid gloves. You can say they keep winning, but you can't sit here and say TCU keeps winning and then point and say Alabama should have lost to Texas. Well, TCU's been in a number of games where, they could have very easily lost. They have a subpar defense. Guys, I hope TCU wins out, and they're in if they win out 100%. But let's not sit here and use kid gloves for TCU. Let's call it like it is. Let's judge everyone the same. It's the same thing with Tennessee. If Ohio State went to overtime with Pittsburgh it feels like that would be viewed a little bit different than Tennessee and their overtime game with Pittsburgh. It seems like teams like Tennessee, teams like TCU, they're viewed a little bit differently than your Michigans, your Ohio States, and your Alabamas. So Alabama at number 6, you could argue it. I did predict Alabama to be number 6 and TCU to be number 7 earlier. Oregon at number 8. That's what I said. There's that top 7, and then number 8 is clearly Oregon. Their major loss they had week 1. Ever since that game, they have been impressive. I have respect for that. USC at number 9, so I thought USC would have been number 10. They're number 9. They have a 1-point road loss to Utah. That was a game they were winning. Very, very good team. Kind of a weak resume because of the Pac-12, but overall, they do have a legitimate offense. I will say this year, I think USC's roster is a little weak, especially on the defensive side of the ball. LSU at number 10. Why not? They have 2 losses. They face Alabama this week. It probably won't matter much because I'm expecting Alabama to beat LSU pretty easily. Ole Miss at number 11. I feel like the committee is punishing UCLA the same way they punished Michigan for the week schedule. I had UCLA at number 9. They've got them at number 12 because they had a horribly weak schedule. If you guys don't know, Michigan and UCLA had a home-and-home scheduled for this year. Michigan canceled it because they wanted an extra home game. So that got canceled. Kansas State at number 13, of course, coming off their 48-0 win over Oklahoma State. Or Kansas State playing their backup quarterback. So impressive. They're at 13. That's a good ranking. That is a respectable ranking for the Big 12. Utah at 14. I like that. Penn State at 15. I really like that. Penn State is a good team. They've had 2 tough losses. They were in the game against Ohio State. The Michigan game was an aberration. It happens. But other than that, they are a good team. Illinois at number 16. One-loss team. Right now, if Illinois, I don't think they're going to win out because they face Michigan the second to last game. But either way, right now, Illinois playing well. It's either them or Purdue in the Big Ten West. North Carolina at 17. I would have them a little bit lower. I don't think they have a defense, but they are a one-loss team. Drake May has been one of the more underrated players in college football, leading college football right now in total touchdowns, responsible for. Oklahoma State at number 18, I'd move them down a little bit more. You can't lose 48-0. Tulane at number 19, that's a respectable ranking for them. Syracuse at 20, I think Syracuse is going to lose to Pittsburgh this week. They have a bad offense. Wake Forest at 21. They had the blow-up game against Louisville. That really hurt Clemson's overall strength of schedule, but Wake Forest, with Sam Hartman, that was an aberration. He's still a good quarterback. They're still a decent team. NC State, you really got to feel for NC State. They've got a good defense, but without Devin Leary, they are just simply not good enough. They almost lost to Virginia Tech this past week. How about Oregon State getting a shout-out? And then we do have Texas at number 24, 3-loss Texas. It does not surprise me at all that the committee ranks 3-loss Texas, but the AP poll doesn't. The committee tends to value metrics more than the AP poll, and all the metrics, the FPI, any of the rankings, any of the strength of record, the power rankings, they love Texas. So this does not surprise me that Texas is ranked. And then UCF, I like that they're showing UCF respect, even with kind of the situation UCF currently has with their backup playing because their starter has a concussion. They just beat Cincinnati. And guys, rest in peace to Liberty, who was ranked officially all of 2 days. They get ranked on Sunday. And then on Tuesday here, they're not ranked. So this weekend, they will be not ranked because all of the ESPN bottom line, all of that stuff is changing to just top 25 via the committee. The AP poll is meaningless now. These are the official rankings. Tennessee is number 1, not Georgia. Ohio State is number 2 in both polls. And then Georgia, who was number 1 in the AP poll, is number 3 here. The overall matchup is going to be number 1 at number 3. Number 1 Tennessee at number 3 Georgia. That is the matchup that we were looking. Will it be a 1v2? Originally, I thought there was a chance it could be a 1v2. After digging into the data, I realized that, Georgia's overall strength of schedule is simply not good enough. And I quickly want to go to the FPI and just look at some teams that weren't ranked. And we've got Minnesota, who's an FPI 19. That doesn't surprise me that they weren't ranked. Notre Dame is FPI 18. They're not ranked. If they beat Clemson, I'm sure they're going to be ranked. Some of these teams like Wisconsin, they shouldn't be ranked. Maryland, that was another one I was interested to see. Maryland at 6-2, and they had a competitive performance, against Michigan on the road. They're 6-2 in the Big Ten. I would have liked to seen them possibly be ranked over NC State. I think right now NC State is a really weak team with their quarterback situation. I like their defense, but it's unfortunate. We've seen with their backup quarterback the horrible performance against Syracuse, the 9 total points, on offense, and then the bad performance, the weeknight performance against Virginia Tech. They come back and they win, but Virginia Tech is bad, and you're down by multiple scores in the fourth quarter. That is not a good look. So the biggest stuff here, they go Tennessee at number 1. Georgia falls to 3 due to their resume. They're punishing Michigan for their non-conference schedule. They're punishing UCLA for their non-conference schedule. LSU is ranked number 10. That's a bit of a surprise. I like that they didn't put Ole Miss in the top 10. Ole Miss does not have the wins to be inside of the top 10. So those are just, I would say, the main takeaways from this initial rankings. And it's all going to sort itself out. I think there's no scenario. Well, I guess there is a scenario. It would have to be DEFCON, 5 for TCU to finish undefeated and not make the playoff. I think Ohio State would have to be undefeated. Well, I think if TCU goes undefeated, they're making the playoff 100%. I don't think they would leave an undefeated Power 5 champ out for like a one-loss SEC non-champ or something like that, although it's an interesting conversation. Right now, I think TCU, if they win out, they're in. If they lose a single game, they are out. I think that's very clear what the committee is saying, putting Alabama in front of TCU, but those are the overall rankings. Does Oregon have a chance to get in? I think they do. I think that week 1 game, if it would have been closer, even if it would have been like 49-27, you could really make a better argument. The fact that they laid down and died really hurts them. But if they do win out, the Pac-12, there are some key wins to get for them. Maybe they'll have a chance as a one-loss team. That only loss was to Georgia. But of course, the caveat, they got annihilated in the game. So we will see, guys. That is the initial top 25. That is my rapid reaction. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description.